Moron, Charles.
That's the way to go, Jason. That's another classic of a masterpiece movie. Before we sing the praises of the art department on that one, I think we left out any discussion of the poster for last week.
Yeah, we sort of buried the lead, Charles.
We did.
But that happened because of a technical disruption that happened right out of the gate. People missed the first maybe 90 seconds of the broadcast, which actually contains some important information that I put out on Twitter after that. So people should probably also follow @CS The Truth on Twitter if you want every last little morsel of Crowdsource the Truth. But what did we want to say about the alleged good billionaire?
Well, I'm very much in favor of a system that encourages people legitimately and lawfully to make as much money as they can.
I agree.
Because I think when you have such a system, and again, you enforce the laws equally against billionaires, against paupers, absolutely the same. When you do that, that activity is an engine of additional activity. It'll cause more and more people to get hired to serve the billionaire's business, and then then to serve the companies or service providers that are serving, the providers to the billionaire's business, and on and on and on.
100,000 there, Charles. The concept of motivating people to be their own self-starters.
As opposed to having a system where we have, where we're now encouraging the dumbest motherfuckers on the planet, hence dial M for moron, to stand up and, at our considerable expense, fly around on Air Force One and give the kind of idiotic speech that Dumb Joe gave yesterday in Pennsylvania.
In Philadelphia, of all places, he seems to be counteracting stuff that we say and do. You think Dumb Joe was watching Freedom Watch's Third Continental Congress?
If he was watching, he certainly wasn't comprehending it. But honestly, to create all these people who I think fall victim to Chicken Little syndrome. They've got to find some cause that is going to imminently affect millions or billions of people, and only they, in their wisdom, can go and come up with a, quote, solution, or can decide that you need them to fight on your behalf for several decades at your expense. That kind of a system, I think we see in the numbers that are available to all of us who care about the issues. That kind of a system is rife with fraud. Now, here's a fact that our audience might find pretty interesting, and I know you'll find pretty interesting. Across the entire country of America, in the most recent year for which this NYU, I think you've heard of that place, NYU did a survey and then tried to estimate what is the average profit margin of business, and what do you think it is?
Well, you sent me that article, but I didn't read the whole thing.
I'll have to send it now to you 100 times to make sure
Sorry.
you do it. That's okay. 7.7%.
Oh, come on now. How'd they come up with that ridiculous?
I don't think it's ridiculous at all. After tax?
But 7.7, not 7.8.
Well, no, because what they do, it's academic stuff. They send it out by industry, and they send out a lot of forms, and they filter them down, and they come up with. I think it's probable that's a fair number for accounting profit after tax. In other words, you take revenue, all costs, you get to pre-tax income.
That guy's beating the heat, Charles.
Yeah, he is. Pre-tax income, as is this guy. And then you take out an assessment for corporate and state and federal and foreign corporate income taxes to pull down 7.7%. Remember, after depreciation, after all that kind of stuff, that's pretty good after tax.
The financial aspects of it. I just think they do all that surveying and all that fancy stuff, and then they just make up a number.
No, that's not made up based on my experience. Remember, you could check that. You could look at the S&P 500, so 500 large publicly traded companies, and you could cross-check off of numbers that better be close, because they're submitted. The S&P 500 are companies that trade publicly, so the SEC regulates, and you have a lot of requirements to fulfill to explain to the public how you're doing. So in my experience, 7.7 is probably fair. You could call it 10. It's certainly not an average 20. Okay. Now that's in the for-profit world. Now,
you want to ask weed world?
It's probably higher.
Yes.
In the for-profit world, though. What?
The tennis place went out of business, so Weed World is gone. That's weird, Charles. Because I don't think kids. Oh no. The tennis.
It's there.
Is it out of business? Retail space for lease.
I don't know, but can
Sorry.
we? I'm
No.
sorry. So on the 7.7%, let's think about that for a second. Stay focused, if you will. You're in a business. You own the business with other shareholders, right?
Yes.
So you don't want to see an employee or one of your other shareholders talk to one of your customers and say, "Hey, instead of sending the revenue for the sale of our sneakers into the company, I'll arrange. I've got some sneakers on the side. I'll arrange to get you those sneakers. You could pay me 75% cash."
Is that Reebok in India?
Reebok in India, but that's the kind of stuff that most businesses.
We're about to get run over by a Cadillac.
Not a dinosaur, too?
And this person who seems to be parked in the crosswalk also wants to run people over.
Right.
Sorry.
It's okay. So
Reebok is getting 75% cash.
So in the for-profit world, there's several controls on stealing. The first is there are other shareholders
Right.
who don't want to see you steal from the business, right? The second is their competitors who are, if they hear that your profit margin instead of being the 7.7 is 27.7,
Something's wrong.
well, they're going to go and figure out whatever the price is of your product. They're just going to offer the same thing at 10% down. And inevitably, they'll chip away at your
Market forces
Right.
will cause it to go down.
and there are literally billions of people in the market who are, if the regulators won't do anything about it, they're going to do something about it. So there's a hell of a lot of market forces at work to regulate legal businesses. Now, of course, anytime you create laws, you create a black market. So in addition, we can't just address the legitimate sneaker market. There's also going to be a whole bunch of knockoff crooks around the world, and they're going to be competing against you too. But so my point is, you contrast that with a charity, and like the Clinton Foundation as an example, there's only 1 year look at this, just going to walk out in the traffic. There's only 1 year from 1997, sorry, there are only 2 years from 1997 to 2019. Only 2 years where the Clinton Foundation doesn't provide any information about the breakdown of its revenue. The first year, 1997, because Bill was too busy figuring out how he was going to explain to the world what he had been doing, diddling Monica Lewinsky from January 1998 forward. The diddling occurred in 94 and forward, but the explanation that was required was precisely when he and Hillary needed to put in their first tax form for the Clinton Foundation. So what they decided to do is, F that, we're not going to do that.
Right.
The other year, where there's no detail provided concerning the individual donations.
Oh! That lady just almost unplugged everything.
Idiot.
Hang on a second.
Are we okay?
Yeah.
The other year, the only other year where there's no information about donations is 2003. Now, why is that significant? Watch it.
Yeah, a lot of talk.
That would have been a real unfortunate slip up.
Back to our reading, educational process of slipped on phonics.
Right. So in 2003, there's no information about the Clinton Foundation's constituent donations. Why do you think that is, Jason?
Probably the truth would upset you.
That's the first year that Ireland supposedly committed 158 million bucks.
Is that Dennis O'Brien doing that?
Not Dennis O'Brien, but
Declan Kelly somehow?
no, I don't think so. But some other questionable Irish people.
Rogues.
So in the case of the Clinton Foundation, in 2003, I think the total revenues were on the order of 50, 60 million bucks. So that they declared, if they hit another 100, you could quickly see how, if you're going to be a crook, foundations are a lot more interesting to steal from
Than private
for-profit,
corporations.
right? So if
Easier.
you could find yourself a leaky foundation,
Wait, this could be a radio problem. Sorry,
let's go quickly through it then.
What do we think these guys are doing?
I don't know.
Mobile command center.
Hopefully taking care of us.
Take care of something. So it's much better to steal from a charity.
No, better, more fruitful if you're a crook. you'd migrate, I think, to a leaky charity, and in particular, a leaky charity that operates internationally, because where there's a questionable political family involved with it, because there it's going to be really easy to steal and not get caught. And then
the guys in charge involved.
And then if you can get that charity to get involved in hurricane relief and volcano relief and tsunami relief and stuff where tens of billions of dollars is going to come to you, then you can really coin money.
Now, you said something interesting in an offline conversation the other day when I was joking about James Comey seizing everybody's Legos, that the Lego company, I think it's Danish.
It may be owned by a foundation.
Yeah, so what's that all about? How can a toy company be part of a foundation, and what's the deal with it?
All right, I don't know Danish law, but I do know, I have a book on international law pertaining to foundations, and I do know that in certain European countries, the laws about foundations are very, very different.
We're about to get attacked.
Virginia!
That guy's having a bad day. This guy,
He's obviously calling in a report to the New York Times.
That guy's got to be a little bit hot. You see him in the overcoat?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Anyway, so I know, for example, in I think Scandinavia and possibly in Germany, it is possible to give your charity to a foundation, and then take give your corporation to a foundation, take some kind of a deduction for it, and then when you decide you want it back, to get it back.
That sounds really screwy.
Well, really sketchy.
See, I've got myself wired a new way today, and it was not good.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. It's just a little bit, I have less flexibility in terms of how I can move around.
So going back then to the billionaire question, it would be one thing if Microsoft and Bloomberg and Amazon and go down the list, and Zuckerberg were operating companies that had numerous competitors and not operating actual or near monopolies. Rapaciously.
Right over there.
Huh? Exactly.
Microsoft store is right there.
Exactly. Rapaciously. Then I would have a point of view that, look, if you've created an industry and there are 100 different companies in it and you happen to have 12% market share, but there's a lot of people fighting and it's healthy competition, that's one thing. If you created an industry and you have 85% global market share and your original $200,000 investment is now worth $200 billion and you haven't paid any taxes along the way because you've been contributing your appreciated stock. You live in Washington, you pay no state income tax, and you contribute your stock to a foundation that you still control. Then I've got a different point of view.
And so a lot of legal weed there, Charles.
Exactly.
We just got hit like their air conditioning Port Authority with
Forgive
weed.
me, I'm feeling a little high, but whoa, man.
That we just got hit by a blast. That looks cool.
What?
I think it's a hotel. What is that building? Or it's the movie theater.
Dallas Barbecue.
That's
let's
just in
move
the
away from
second
this.
floor.
It's a collection of miscreants.
Port Authority is definitely one of the sketchiest places in the city.
So when we go back to the art department's great poster from last Sunday, you have up there a picture of Gates, you have a picture of Mackenzie, is it Scott?
Yes.
And you have a picture of, I think, Mike Bloomberg.
Right.
All of whom...
Scoundrels.
Well, Mackenzie Scott married somebody who became a billionaire, and so she gets to be a billionaire. And I don't belittle, maybe she contributed enormously to the Amazon success story. Maybe she didn't, who knows. Nonetheless, I don't begrudge her the billions. I don't wish, I don't wish her any malice at all. In the case of Gates, on the other hand, I think his foundation is a disgrace. And the idea that there would be effectively no governance there and no consequences for using that private foundation as a slush fund to curry influence around the world, and in particular in countries that should have attacked it more aggressively, Microsoft for its monopolistic practices. So I think the Gates Foundation is one that should probably be shut down. And were it to be, obviously it deserves to be, go through the judicial system, but if it were to be investigated, and if somebody were to go, what?
I've never seen that type of vehicle before.
Yeah.
If it were to be investigated and somebody were to go
through all the books and records to see how many what are called taxable expenditures have been made by this thing, I think you discover that it's a perpetual scofflaw, or whatever the right phrase is, in failure to police the gifts that they say they made to public charities, like they say the Clinton Foundation and its many affiliates were public, but they weren't public charities. And they gave over 150 million direct, and through Unitaid, they allowed Unitaid to give it 650 million into a charity, which when you cut through the shit, the
Good
essential
news, Charles.
June 1st.
The strip club is open. That's an incredibly racy. I can't believe they're showing that. I can't believe I just showed that.
It doesn't look very open to me. But anyway,
it's unclear if that's a laser hair removal place or a strip club.
it's an underwear removal
Could be
place.
both.
Yeah. But anyway,
It should be
the
disbanded.
essential, the 30-second case against the Clinton Foundation is presidential libraries, which is what the Clinton Foundation was supposed to be, are supposed to hold presidential records, which are legally defined under the Presidential Records Act of 1978 and under an executive order to be
From
all
Jimmy Carter?
records, I forget what year, all records created or received by a presidency during the president's term. Not records before and not records after, the records of Bill Clinton when he was president. That's what the building's supposed to hold. That's what they applied to hold. They said those records would be in Little Rock. That's all it's supposed to be. That, a record repository.
No mini golf course.
No mini golf course.
No apartment.
No apartment.
Overpriced restaurant.
No overpriced
Demonic
restaurant.
statues.
No demonic statues.
Damn it.
A place to study the same, all that, but no degree program at the Clinton Public School of Public
they
Service.
have that.
No Clinton Health Initiative in Boston. No Clinton Grifter Initiative in New York and in China, etc. So, we have our vaunted FBI. I've tweeted out this week links to a story about just how powerful the forensic auditors of the FBI are. And they're supposedly quite powerful. You're telling me that this thing was investigated for 4 years, from February 2001 to sometime in 2005, and nobody noticed that this presidential records repository wasn't built, never was audited.
Can you have a Lego version of it? Does that count? Maybe they were busy building Legos at the FBI.
And they were doing all sorts of other things. They never validly accounted for the money raised. Nobody at the FBI noticed that in 48 months. And afterwards, nobody noticed, Jason, this thing, the first attempted audit of the Clinton Foundation was produced on June 9th, 2006. Do you know how many days that is after the thing was, in theory, incorporated?
It's years.
Over 3,100 days.
Yeah.
So in 3,100 days, no director, no executive, nobody noticed that there wasn't an audit.
Maybe they weren't looking.
And yet all these people rushed to give it a lot of money.
Well, not any of the auditors.
So,
I bet.
and then in November of 2006, by September of 2006, they had used their global grifter magic to get the Unitaid, this new organization, signed up to give the Clinton Foundation to make it the largest recipient of aid, in time getting it 650 million. And somebody did a study in November 2006 and said, wait a minute, this, A, what you plan to do with the Clinton Foundation and Unitaid is not charity, it's business development. And B, the Clinton Foundation is not a public charity. It has to be. That's bad.
That's what George says when the guy tells him, apparently you had sex with the cleaning lady on your desk. Should I not have done that?
Is that bad? Oh man. So that's a brief overview of what we might have talked a little bit about on Sunday had we not been
What's
distracted.
happening with Mackenzie Scott, though? She's now doing some charitable stuff, or what?
Yeah, she's got a charity and she's giving money away, and people are trying to argue that she's a great, noble person for giving this money away. And again, it's not as if in 2021 we live in a world where there are no stimulus checks, and there's no Social Security, and there's no safety net, and there are no other charities. In the United States alone, supposed contribution to the economy of charities approaches 15% of our total GDP. To use round numbers, that's about $3 trillion a year.
Well, it is hot. We've been disconnected, so hopefully we're back. I hope that people watching know that we've got a pretty resilient system now for restoring outages. Let's see if we are indeed back.
What are these people doing?
What are they doing?
It's green light, they're just standing there.
Maybe they're going to super soak us. Are we back here?
I don't know.
100 degrees is right.
Is it 100 degrees?
Well, I don't know. It feels like it. People are saying, how are you able to deal with the suit? You know what, Charles? Look, here's a ton of police radio stuff right there.
Where?
Right
Oh,
up there. That could have easily disrupted the broadcast. I can't tell if it's back on or not.
Let's get under the shade and let these
I think
people
it
walk.
is.
Just because the noise of the rollers.
Right.
And here you can see it's obvious that the city is back because the largest sightseeing operation is shut. I mean, because if the city were back, the sightseeing place would obviously want to be shut down. And this gray line thing used to have buses and ferries, and you see them everywhere.
Yeah, we're back on.
We're back, and that.
Oh, that's the double-decker bus.
Right, and that uses a lot of student labor in the summer, right? You've got all these kids, nothing
Tour
to
guides.
do. And when you shut something like that down, it doesn't, I mean, it's really lost economic activity. You can't, maybe you get dumb Joe will give it a PP loan or whatever you call it, PPE loan.
Well, what about the whole idle hands become the devil's
Exactly.
plaything?
You talking about
Or
Hillary?
whatever. Yeah.
Devil's
Oh, God.
plaything. I think if the devil met Hillary, he'd toss her back. Say, wow, worse than I thought I could do.
Now, there's been a lot of stuff going on with Cuba.
That's
Cuba.
Cuba, yeah. Like, you got to learn how to pronounce things properly, Jason.
We
You want to
should
go?
ask Dr. Fauci. We trust Cuba. Trust everybody, but get over it with the vaccine.
Well, both Cuba and there's trouble in Haiti.
Oh my goodness! What the hell is this?
What?
The Q. What is this place? It's just more stupidity.
What?
The place.
Yeah. So there's an interesting common set of issues with Haiti and Cuba, and for that matter, Dominican Republic, which is richer than both. In Haiti and Cuba, they haven't really had Cuba higher than Haiti. Haiti certainly hasn't had much in the way of vaccinations for COVID.
Well, they only had 451 deaths in
out
the whole
of
country.
out of 10 million people, right?
I think it's even more than that.
It's 10 million, but roughly 10 million, but or maybe 12 million.
But even so, that's like the size of New York City, and there's been
Right. So explain that. I mean, if this is a health emergency, why don't we go over to the 9th?
9th?
Yeah,
Sure.
because that'll go up right
I thought we
into.
wanted to check out the Cuba embassy.
Well, that's all the way on Lexington. We're gonna go first. We're going up to Columbus,
All right.
and then we'll go spin around.
This would be a nice tour for everybody.
Yeah, well, it's a nice.
And
day.
also, just quickly, covering this amount of territory in New York City makes it pretty probable that we might run into some network disruptions, but don't change the channel if that happens. We'll be back in just a matter of seconds. And also, people can become sponsors on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. So what's going on with the Dominican Republic,
Right.
Cuba,
And Haiti. Well,
And Haiti.
The point is that if we had to shut the developed world down because it's such a dread threat,
Right.
and in the developed world we have amazing health infrastructure and money, how then do you explain the situation in Haiti where they have no money, no health system, no roads,
Right.
no electricity, and no COVID?
Well, and also according to Kamala Harris, black people are disproportionately affected by it if you do the math incorrectly. But I'm pretty sure there's a lot of black people in Haiti. And
Like
also,
all of
Charles,
them?
Not
Yeah, this
speaking
is
of
new,
Brazil,
by the
but
way.
I just absolutely love this restaurant.
I've never been to this
Oh my
particular
God,
one,
it's great.
but I love churrascarias.
I love this restaurant. I used to go here with my,
You don't need to tell us what
yeah. I love this place. It's great.
Yeah, it's
if you're
good.
hungry and like meat,
Yeah, and
That's the place to go.
And what's it called? Excuse us.
churrascaria, that's Plataforma.
Right.
And they have sometimes certain days of the week, I'm not sure when, like a jazz trio, which I know you don't like jazz, but I like that about
You
the
mean
place.
noise?
No, it's like bossa nova probably,
Well, that's
not
different.
jazz.
Jazz is different than bustle. But
Well, it's a form of jazz, I believe.
so you can go and you can get your churrascaria and you can have a massage before or afterwards. Actually, it's a nice
I haven't
street.
been in there. Yeah. There's Jersey Boys playing there, if you like Broadway stuff.
Which I
But it's
don't.
probably closed. So, oh yeah, Eric Adams had a press conference with the incredibly dumb Emmy Award-winning governor Andrew Cuomo.
What
I don't know what was said. I didn't get a chance to see it. I wanted to try to get over there, but it was in Brooklyn, and getting there and getting back in time for the show wouldn't have really worked.
Don't be Burrowist.
Well,
I mean, you can't be anti-Brooklyn. I mean, that's a form of racism.
Staten Island has taken over as my second favorite.
Isn't that where your beach estate is?
Yeah. Is there a beach in Staten Island? There probably
Well, there's-
is. It's an island.
There's got to be something there.
I just found out there's a beach in the Bronx that I didn't know about.
Really?
What about Little Tony and Igor Be Good?
It looks pretty nice, actually.
It's a classic barbershop.
Now, this may be awfully sunny. I don't know if there's going to be a shady side of this street here.
There's low buildings as we approach the west side here. So, well, Charles, this topic of these underdeveloped countries having much less, lower numbers in terms of fatal outcomes from COVID, it's something that John Cullen has been exploring for months.
Right.
And it's difficult to explain if it's not a targeted, again, we're in a climate here that is not friendly to free and robust discussion of ideas. We've got a mandate as far as what we're able to talk about. And
Across
so,
the street, I guess. Yeah.
rather than decimating the platform by challenging that in a way that's guaranteed to fail, we'll have to just insinuate. But they don't want robust debate. Look, there's another progressive flag.
Uh-huh. Can we get in the shade there on the median? The median?
Yep. I wonder what history will teach us, Charles, about what this flag is going to come to symbolize. Was there ever a time that the Nazis put up their party flag and people were like, oh, maybe that's all right, and then it wasn't until later that people realized it was a symbol of evil?
Yeah, the Nazi flag is obviously is evil, but unfortunately, in India, that flag has a different meaning.
Right, they co-opted the swastika.
Yeah.
They love to co-opt stuff.
But without going, let's not necessarily talk about COVID, but let's talk about health. And, the next 12 months, I hope to exercise more and lose some weight. You get to a point where you realize maybe you put on too much weight, so you should lose weight.
Well, the pandemic, I think, did that to a lot of people.
Right, but when we get into this issue of, what are some of the comorbidities with COVID, one of them is obesity. And how do you define that? You can define
Something to do with the body mass index.
Right, but if I were to contrast the much smaller population of the U.S., the distribution of weight by height, male and female by age, in the U.S. versus China versus India, right? In America, we're packing a lot of extra weight. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Right. And so, when you go and you say, all right, somebody of a certain age dies with COVID, the statistician would want to say, okay, what are the factors that contributed to that death? Was COVID 1%? Was it 5%? Was it 0%? Was it 100%? You want to be able to do that. You don't want to set up a system that says, okay, if in the hospital that needs money, when somebody dies, if you say that that person died with COVID, you're going to get $20,000 a person. And I'm not saying that's how it works exactly. The statistics are going to be skewed. And it's human nature and natural that would happen. It's actually illegal, I think, or certainly unethical to do it that way, but it's not difficult to figure out that that might be a contributing factor. Similarly with HIV and AIDS, in the post-Clinton presidency era, when the Global Fund was ramped up starting in 2002, we went around the world, that is to say George W. Bush.
Wasn't Deborah Birx part of that?
Deborah Birx and Fauci were both part of that. We went around the world to desperately poor countries and we said, you know, enough already with these dam projects and road projects and hospital projects. You've got an AIDS problem. And some of the guys said, no, we don't. Yeah, you do. No, we don't. Yeah, you do.
That smells delicious.
Yeah, watch it. And so then they further said, look, George W. Knucklehead, and I'm increasingly like, hi there.
Hi. That's the Peruvian place.
Gotten more and more disenchanted with my distant cousin as time passes. He doesn't look better. He doesn't mature. His reputation does not mature as it ages. So
George W.
Yeah. So
I think clones have rapid aging, don't they?
So in January of 2003, again the year where the Clinton Foundation hid this money, or tried to hide the money that it may have gotten from Ireland, from the Irish taxpayer, Bush said, you know what, instead of giving $500 million a year for HIV and AIDS, we're going to give $3 billion a year for 5 years.
Give it to who?
Well, that's the question. It was initially, I think the way they reasoned it through, the slime close to Bush, was that a lot of that money would be used to buy branded pharmaceutical drugs. So the branded pharma companies, who are big contributors to both parties, were very happy to have the taxpayers step up and throw another $15 billion over the course of 5 years into the pipeline and revenue stream, profit streams of these companies. They were very happy to see that. And so
that dog was wearing shoes.
And so that's a strange sign. Why would you carry beers? We carry beers.
I think that means you can take them out of there. Oh, yeah, no, it's probably written by somebody who English is a second language. That's a new type of car, Charles. I haven't seen the Department of Homeless Services. I thought it was Department of Homeland Security place.
Yeah. So you're carrying beers. Where are you carrying them?
Right over to the police. Have them for sale?
Well, right next to the Midtown Health Center. Good to know.
Wow.
I have a friend.
What do you make of that?
What?
Scary looking skeleton bird
graffiti thing. So staying then, Jason, though, with the health approach, we went under Fauci, under Birx, under the WHO, we went to this idea that instead of having on the ground doctors and nurses figure out how to identify illness, treat it, and how to ration healthcare to the extent it needed to be rationed, instead we're going to have boneheads like Chelsea Clinton, the world's expert in theory on diarrhea of the mouth. We're going to give people like her PhDs or in health and gin up these global bureaucracies to ask and receive hundreds of billions of dollars in aid that is never validly accounted for anywhere, and use this monstrosity, which the WHO is, as an instrument of control, as opposed to an instrument of caring for the health
or whatever,
health and well-being. Because when you hear, without thinking about it, if somebody says, "Listen, I run the infectious disease department. I've got a PhD and an MD and a staff of 10,000 people, and I'm telling you that COVID is this, or I'm telling you that AIDS is that." A normal human being is going to say, well, he probably knows what they're talking about. I mean, the person wouldn't get to be high up in this global organization and be there for a long time and publish all these papers if they didn't know what they're talking about. When the truth is, they probably don't know what they're talking about, most of them.
Well, they like to steal credibility and lend credibility to those that aren't credible. But Charles, look, it's interesting to make a little audit of the types of businesses that are opening and replacing some of this stuff. A lot of ice cream and donuts, and that seems new. I don't know what that ice cream place is all about, but then I think a lot of veterans, and I don't think you're supposed to display the American flag like that.
Where?
Well, look up at Flanagan's or whatever this is, Flaming Saddles.
Oh yeah, I know.
So this is, I guess, sort of
It's the newest gay bar.
Is that what it says?
Yeah.
Best
Saddle up for
gay bar.
Best gay bar.
Hell's Kitchen. Well, but I mean, I don't think you're supposed to conflate the U.S. flag with the pride flag.
You wouldn't be thinking about law in New York City, would you?
Well, is it against the law to do it, or just like...
Is there any law in New York City?
A bad idea? No, not really. I mean, unless you do something against, Biden or Cuomo, it seems like people who abide by the law go to jail. And
well, put differently, there was somebody writing on one of the things I watch online saying, imagine the contrast. It's okay to burn the American flag. Imagine if you burned the pride flag.
Oh, yeah.
Or the Antifa flag. What would happen?
Right, you'd be vilified.
Right, but you burn the American flag, it's like, hey, it's freedom of expression.
You could be in the Olympics and do that, according to Joe Biden. He likes that.
Yeah.
But if you burn weed, then you can't be in the Olympics. You're supposed to burn weed. You're not supposed to burn the flag.
Yeah.
It's a lot of stuff out of business up here.
Yeah. Well, so the case of going back on Joe Biden for a second, which is a dreary and distressing topic.
Yes.
You and I were both in Philadelphia recently.
Yep.
Joe Biden went down to Philadelphia, and I don't know whether he should be more ashamed of the substance of what he said, or the fact that with all the power the presidency has to shape, to gather an audience and to command share of media, he gets nothing by way of audience in his live streams. It's a joke. I mean, if I were president of the United States and I had his numbers, I'd just say, you know what, Kamala, it's all yours. All you.
Well, it
Babe,
was interesting.
over to you.
He made a point of saying, Charles, more people than ever voted in the 2020 election. According to Joe Biden, over 150 Americans voted.
150 whole people?
I know.
Did that count conservatives?
He probably meant 150 million, but he's thinking when he sees 150 people watching the live stream, that must be a lot.
Do you think he counts conservatives as a whole, or 60%?
I don't think he can count.
Yeah. And then he said something like, I'm not trying to alarm you.
This is a fancy place that people have probably not seen. I don't think I've seen it. Alvin Ailey Dance Center.
Yeah. He said something like, I'm not trying to alarm you about the Republicans' continuing challenge of the vote.
The big lie.
Right, but you should be alarmed. I'm not trying to alarm you, but you should be alarmed. But you should not be allowed to get away with a statement like that. I mean, you should just take the mic, get the hook, and say, listen, dude, you don't get with your audience to say something that freaking stupid. You just said, in essence, you want us to be alarmed.
We should already be alarmed. And if you're not, here's a reminder.
And then, on the substance of his claim that the January 6, 2021 incident, or set of incidents in D.C., was bloodier than the Civil War.
Well, 9/11, they said it was worse than 9/11.
He also said Civil War.
How could he say that?
Because he's a moron.
And didn't that go on for years, and like brother against brother?
Well, it killed, I want to say,
hundreds of thousands?
No, it killed or grievously wounded, I want to say, on the order of 10% of the population. I mean, it was a big...
Holy crap.
Call it 3 to 10%. I don't know the...
Where are we heading?
We're heading towards Columbus Circle.
Oh,
straight
okay.
ahead.
It's really bad up here.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's just an absolutely absurd statement.
Right, and it was... And then said something like, there were more casualties at that January 6th than in any previous battle or something like that.
What?
And the only casualties,
Was the woman shot by the guy who works for the Capitol Police.
Right, so to be able to say that kind of stuff, having followed on the heels of the long line of fake scandals. We were Jack Cashel, I know you know him, and he's going to be on your show tomorrow. He has a piece today talking about TWA Flight 800.
That's what the show tomorrow is about. Right. I think it's the 17th anniversary.
No, it's 25th.
25th. Why did I think it was 7th? I don't know.
So there's been a long line of fake scandals that have been used to whip the public up, either to quell interest in what's really going on or to whip the public up into a frenzy. And the FBI seems to be centrally involved as an actor in doing that. And so we go back now over the course of the entire Trump campaign, presidency, and post-presidency. Sure looks to me as if we have abundant evidence. Wow, that used to be nice over there.
It's a wreck up here, Charles.
Look at that, it says expose Jeffrey Epstein. I'd rather not do that, but
that's interesting.
Let's cross while we've got the light.
Why are they writing that up here, though? That doesn't really have anything to do with this neighborhood. Or does it?
I don't know.
Recently learned, Charles, that William Barr went to Horace Mann. Maybe you already knew that.
We've talked about that before. I've known about that forever.
I talk about so many things I sometimes forget certain details.
But you're younger than I am.
I mean...
I'm kidding you, man. It's the best defense.
Look at this dog wearing ballet outfit. That's silly. That dog's obviously going to ballet class.
Right. So if we at 57th Street,
they're whipping people up into a frenzy over nonsense, Charles. Something that bothers me is that I don't know that there's been one trial yet, and they're already referring to the thing in a conclusory kind of manner as an insurrection.
Right.
So that puts whoever is a defendant there at a disadvantage of them already having this foregone conclusion that something criminal took place. If you're one of these people who showed up because the President of the United States said, hey, everybody come to Washington, D.C., and then one of the even more unfortunate people who made the decision to walk inside the building when the cops said, okay, you can come in.
Right.
Now you are faced, actually, let's tuck back in there until the light changes. You're now faced with the disadvantaged position of having to defend against something that they've already decided was a criminal act.
Well, and worse, Tucker, I think, had a good monologue the other day where he reminded people that there were weekly phone calls leading up to the election where the other side, the left, was planning, if Trump won, was explicitly planning to have violent demonstrations across the country. And the FBI, the NSA, whoever spies on this, has abundant evidence of all that. And firsthand evidence. The public has seen the BLM riots, which occurred all during 2020 from March onwards.
There's tons of video evidence of all kinds of stuff happened on the day. You and I identified numerous people that we said seemed like Antifa. I've interviewed John Sullivan, who says that he was aware that there was social media posts that there would be this attack on the Capitol building well before the 6th. But the FBI continues to ignore that. So it's not like they even need any kind of special intelligence or investigation. They could just simply become sponsors on patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth or subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. They'd have all that. Right,
but again, I don't want to jump over this issue of weekly phone calls. How far did they go back? Likely involving BLM and what's the one that the conduit for BLM?
With Greenberg in there?
Yeah, exactly.
What was that thing called?
Something blue? Was it Act Blue?
Was it Act Blue or something green?
No, Act Blue.
Okay.
And so there's a tremendous amount of evidence, and Schumer and others were fond of saying there's no evidence that these riots were riots or harmful. I mean, behind it's like the Baghdad Bob. You got cities burning, men being raped in the CHOP in Seattle in front of their kids and wife. Absolute chaos in Portland, Minneapolis, New York.
But all those people, the charges have been dropped. If you're in San Francisco, robbing Neiman Marcus. Chesa Boudin refuses to prosecute anybody.
Right.
And these people who were, in some cases, allowed into the building by the U.S. Capitol Police are now being, detained in solitary confinement, beaten, some cases permanent injuries.
And I've been there since January 6th, 7th time frame, and that's outrageous in the United States of America. How is that not a gross violation of individual rights? And then the stories, which may or may not be true, well, frankly, I hope they're not true, that the Democrat Party has begun putting pressure on the purveyors of texting services and phone services to start screening, which they probably are doing already, everybody's phone calls, and then to the extent you text something that the overlord decides is not correct, the overlord will then correct it on your text or indicate that it's misinformation. I mean, that is just so far away from being lawful.
So far away from being America.
Right, well, we didn't set up, the Constitution does not mention, this used to be a good place actually, Gleason's.
What was it?
Gleason's.
Oh.
I only know because CNN is right across the street.
Well, you'd think the Communist News Network would be supplying business to a bar right across the street.
Right, and that's where...
If they're not drunk when they're delivering that information, what's their excuse?
Yeah. This is where, and Bill Gates used to have an apartment in this building here. But here...
This is the amazing... this is that thing that the meteor destroyed in the movie about that monster. I forget, but this is,
That's very helpful.
Columbus Circle. The movie is about, it was a movie that was made to look like it was made on somebody's cell phone and uploaded to the internet, but I forget the name of it. People in the comments will remember.
But when I was on Sun News several times a week,
I think that guy recognized you.
Yeah, I used to go in there and be in the waiting room. That's where I met Bill Gates in the green room there.
And did you tell him he was a dope or something?
No, I just said, I need to use this computer. Don't touch this computer.
Bill Gates said that?
I said it to him.
What was he going to do to it?
I don't know. I just wanted to make sure he didn't get on it.
Don't let him near a computer or it'll get screwed up.
Right. Well, because see, what Sun was having me do, and we could go, maybe walk, if there's a shady park, probably on the south side of 59th Street, it'll be shady. Slim Shady.
Cloverleaf was the name of that movie, Charles.
What was it?
It's called Cloverleaf, and these kids are having a party in this very fancy building, and then a meteor hits, and there's a monster in it, and it destroys New York, and it's like these kids are the only ones alive making the movie, and they somehow have recovered the video after everybody's dead or something like that.
Yeah, I think about 3 other people than you saw that one. I've never
that
heard
was
of that
very
one.
Popular,
really?
that movie.
Never heard of that one. Probably we should go that way, you think?
Sure. We're here. You got the Trump International over there.
There was a movie about, it was called The Concierge, I think, or something, about in the Trump.
I didn't see that one, but I believe it.
Trump International there. Dead Ahead, this was at Huntington, Hartford, I think, the A&P. That whole thing was a museum that he set up. And he had, A&P, I guess, went bankrupt eventually, but at one point...
it says Museum of Art and Design.
At one point, A&P was worth a tremendous amount of money, and he, as an heir to the fortune, was worth a lot of money. And he just managed... He had the touch of shit. Everything he touched turned to shit.
Isn't that what Obama said about Joe Biden?
It is. This way, Jason?
Yes. So I don't know, Charles, if people have seen the movie. Have you ever seen the movie Dial M for Murder?
Why don't you tell us about it? Because you do know a lot about movies and specifically 3D movies.
Well, right, and that's a movie that a lot of people may not realize was originally shot in 3D, and it's the only Hitchcock movie ever shot. I'm talking Dial M for Murder, not Dial M for Moron. That's a monoscopic live stream created by you and I. But the Hitchcock version, it was made in 1954, I think, and released in 1955, and 3D was at its height in 1953 and 1954.
Was it really? Wow.
And it was out by 1955 or whenever, because it was complicated to do, it was expensive, particularly in those days. And a lot of the same reasons that caused it to end in my era caused it to end at that time. A lot of greedy, short-sighted producers were like, hey, we want to get in on this 3D thing, but they didn't take the time to learn how to do it properly, and they didn't go to the extra expense in terms of money and actual work to make it correctly. And actually, I was present. I've seen the movie Dial M for Murder many, many times in 3D, including one screening where Alfred Hitchcock's daughter was there and gave a whole presentation, and she said that her father really didn't like 3D or want to work in it, but the studio sort of made him. And once he decided to do something, he did it quite seriously. Yeah, and there's a lot of things that are beyond the scope of this live stream about Dial M for Murder that make it excellent, but I was looking for the image last night, and I happened across a couple different things about it, including the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences had an article about a screening that took place in 2013 that I was present for, where Martin Scorsese gave a little kind of pre-recorded video announcement, and then his visual effects supervisor, Rob Legato, who's a very nice guy, gave a big presentation about some of the technology behind Dial M for Murder. But if anybody out there owns a 3D TV, you were at one time able to get Dial M for Murder in a really nicely restored version on 3D Blu-ray.
Wow.
I have it. It's great. And if you have an opportunity to see it in 3D, if you've ever seen the movie in 2D, you haven't actually seen it.
So let me ask you this, Jason, being somebody who knows nothing really about the movie industry, is Alfred Hitchcock like famous?
Not only is he famous, he's one of the best directors ever. I really do like Alfred Hitchcock.
That's called a softball, just in case.
I know. And the thing that's interesting is a lot of people think that 3D is a gimmick or it's only for like Freddy Krueger movies or something like that. But Hitchcock really used it to put the viewer into the movie. Most of it takes place inside an apartment, and actually Martin Scorsese addresses this, how you really feel the sense of space in the apartment and the distance between the characters or the closeness between the characters, and there's certain real specific shots. I gave a whole presentation about this at the Directors Guild of America in about 2011 or 12.
Is that online?
Find somewhere online. Yeah, you got to search through the Directors Guild website to find it.
Huh. So here we are on Central Park South. This is Billionaire's Row. This is where de Blasio, the maniac, proposes to put all kinds of new homeless shelters in here.
Why would he do that?
Because he's a moron. Dial M for
Moron. You want to do it in such a way? I mean, when you really get down to some of the practical details of how to address the growing homelessness problem, it's not that easy to do. I mean,
well, again, I think if we look in terms of numbers of homeless people, estimated numbers of homeless people, and then money spent on the homeless problem, divide that money by the number of homeless people, and you quickly discover, as a numbers dude, that what's really going on is you're creating a chicken little argument for a lot of money that gets burned and stolen and diverted through the corrupt political establishment that can year in and year out say we've got a homeless problem. We've got a homeless problem.
But they do. We do.
I know. Well, I think there are, in New York City, I think in New York State, there's a series of legal fixes that would have to be contemplated. So I know one is that it is virtually impossible to commit somebody against their will for mental treatment. Virtually impossible in New York State. In much of the Northeast anyway.
Mental health treatment.
Even if you legitimately, the person legitimately should be in treatment, and minds are very tough. I mean, people are good at rationalizing things, even if they're not that smart. And somebody, I know of a situation in Boston where somebody was found on the street buck naked, a woman, in the winter, in like 10 degrees, snow everywhere, buck naked. She gets put into a mental institution.
I meant to do that.
In a mental institution. She wasn't a member of that, what is that club? The
Polar Bear Club?
She wasn't a Polar Bear member who lost her way. So she's buck naked in Boston in 10-degree weather, gets herded into one of these institutions, and she's given a lawyer. The lawyer cleans her up. She's out in 48 hours.
See, the problem, though, is they could weaponize that against people and just claim that somebody's mentally ill and stick them in a home and you never see them again, kind of thing.
I know, but I agree with that, and there should be guards against that, and people illegally in conservatorship, like maybe Britney Spears was, and I understand all that.
A lot of AC coming out of the Essex house.
Well, maybe we should just stay there for a second.
Yeah.
But in fact, you should hook this camera up, and maybe
the
I'll
air
carry
conditioner.
around an air conditioner, and then we can blast us while we're nice car. So anyway, in the homeless situation in New York City, I'm no expert on it, but I do walk around a fair amount, and I see in Washington Square Park every morning the same people doing the same crazy things, and the same, now more cops than there were, which was none before. Now they're like 8 to 10 every morning, doing
that
nothing.
was one of the topics with Joe Biden and Eric Adams.
Oh, really? What was
Well,
it?
now Joe Biden is saying, hey, we need to refund the police because the Republicans,
Defunded it?
Yeah, and Eric Adams is saying, well, I don't think we need to put more money behind the police. We just need to not have 8 cops standing around doing nothing. I don't know, it sounded like a very politician-oriented speech of if someone got in a room and said, we want to appeal to the defund the police and the fund the police crowd at the same time, without committing to anything in particular.
Well, see, when I was a kid growing up around in Washington Square Park, we had periods of, not violence, but we had periods where things were not going well. And there were various initiatives where the policemen typically, now, I mean, people are all bent out of shape about global warming, happy to see in the city cops driving everywhere. 2 cops in a thing driving it. Instead of
idling, the car is never off.
Right, instead of walking around as they used to with billy clubs, swinging those billy clubs. And so you never know, you could be coming around the street corner and run into 2 cops with their billy clubs, and you're not necessarily going to be wilding.
8 p.m.
Or, and I don't say that to pick on African Americans, I mean, behaving like an idiot, which is the way a lot of teenagers behave in the city.
Wilding could be anybody.
Right.
But the other problem, Charles, is that whenever I see cops, they appear to be on their personal cell phones. Do you want to ask these guys if any of this crap is $500,000?
Well, Joan Moreau is probably, if you set the price point,
yeah.
that's going to be Pablo
That's
Picasso.
Dali. Wait a minute. That doesn't look very Dali to me. There was a long scandal where in his later life, and there's Chagall, in his later life,
Andy Warhol. This is all highly suspicious to me.
exactly, they had his like students. He was
Yeah,
signing
that's
blank
standard.
canvases,
That's standard. That's been going on
and
for.
then his house burnt down. Dali died as a result of complications, I think, from
arson?
a fire. And right, there's suspicious circumstances.
Right.
That doesn't look like Dali to me.
Right there. That looks like somebody
Oh,
better
that
keep
paint.
their clothes on. His clothes are almost off.
Who, this person?
Yeah.
He's just jogging.
That person would get severely whipped in Saudi Arabia.
Jog your memory.
Yeah. So here we are, ambling towards Fifth Avenue, Trump Tower. Wander by there.
This
You
guy
did
is
see
eager to run people over.
see what happened in Toledo?
I did not see what happened in Toledo.
The George Floyd mural was struck by lightning
Wow.
and pulverized.
Come on now.
Yeah.
That's a lot of things are getting struck by lightning. I saw 3 British kids were doing a selfie and got struck by lightning.
Was that Indian kids or British kids? Or was that in India?
British.
In India or where?
In England,
In England? Okay.
some Anglo-Saxon types struck
In
by
England?
lightning.
In England? Really?
They were siblings.
So this building here, starting here, see this with white marble? All the way down to the end is owned by my friend.
Was 40?
Yeah. This used to be, it's Cerebest, but it used to be Mickey Mantle's. And this building goes all the way from 50, whatever street this is, 8th, 9th, all the way to the next block.
Speaking of Mickey Mantle, did you realize that Richard Simmons has a pinky ring that is the diamond? Mickey Mantle, was he married to Marilyn Monroe? No, Joe DiMaggio.
Here, now look at this. See, you can see this whole.
Can we go in here?
Yeah, we go. Yeah, we may as well actually.
I hope it. Yeah, let's try it. This is an interesting spot. I've never been in.
But this gives you a sense of how big this building is.
Now, what is this? Rose Lane. That's this place?
I don't know. There's a heavy.
Legal Weed Lane.
Yeah, I know. It does smell a bit like weed.
Why is it called Rose Lane?
But this is quite unusual in New York, in this neighborhood, to have this much of a building. In this is owned by one
courtyard?
family.
Well, I mean, anytime I see anything Rose like that, I'm thinking Rose Law Firm, Compass Rose. What was that whistleblower law firm, wasn't it? Compass Rose Law Firm?
It was it Compass Rose? And this, of course, is the
The
park.
whistleblower with that
Yeah,
guy who
Eric,
had been
Eric, whose name cannot be mentioned. That
right,
guy?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many instances of, Politburo style censorship of who you can't mention.
That's new. Knocking down that building complex. See it across the street.
Yeah.
And we can go. If we head straight here, we'll get close to Trump Tower.
Sure.
Check it out. I saw in the press this morning there was somebody, page 6 of the Post, which may be crap, was suggesting that Melinda Gates was in New York the other day with a presidential level security detail. Now, why you would draw attention to yourself that way is just beyond me.
Got to keep those kidneys healthy. Liver.
You know what I mean? It just doesn't. You would stay in the shade, or you?
Sure. How do they know that it was her?
I had a picture of her.
Oh. And Bill Gates' breast reduction surgery went all right?
That's a topic I'm gonna forget you said that. Here's another nice Mercedes, MHH2. I wonder who that is. Probably Melinda Gates, for all we know.
Maybe. Yeah, this is a little entourage of limos. What is this, the plaza?
Yeah.
From Florida, somebody drove down. It's interesting that the plaza has these checkered floors.
Well, the plaza, it used to be, when I was a young person here in the city, it used to be so nice.
Now we got people hanging out on the stairs smoking cigarettes.
Well, it's just a mess.
On the Lower East Side.
It's been a mess for a long time. And Trump owned 50% of it. I forget who.
Al Walid bought it.
Yeah, another loser.
And then the Paris Theater, I think, wasn't that in danger of closing? Oh, it reopens August 6th.
Doesn't have a year on it though.
Right.
Staying in the shade. Made in the shade, Jason.
Paris Theater. They play Woody Allen. Wow, what do you think of that?
This is a shirt there that guy's wearing is an excellent charity, actually, for Sloan Kettering, to support survivors of and people who have the kind of cancers that Buddha had. But it's just too painful for me to go to those benefits where they organize them, and they constantly are soliciting you.
Well, cancer is certainly a worthwhile thing to try to eliminate.
But again, I don't understand why it hasn't been eliminated yet. It's kind of
complicated.
Well, obviously it's complicated, but I mean, we've been able to figure out a lot of stuff, and supposedly mostly smart people go to medical school and get PhDs in medicine or whatever it is that they get PhDs in. You would have thought that one of them or a group of them
could figure something out.
Or maybe, as happened in that great case of the Indian mathematician, somebody who's got no formal training, whatever, lives, in a latrine somewhere in India, and has a dream and figures out how to solve cancer and sends it into the Chancellor of Oxford. And I mean, that's more or less what happened with this Indian mathematician, not with cancer. No formal training, was working in a post office in rural India, had these ideas, wrote them up, sent them into, I think, Oxford or Cambridge.
Oh, and they accepted them, right?
Not much more than that. They looked at the pile, originally started laughing because it was so dirty and whatever. And then somebody with extra time,
he had solved the unsolvable equation, right?
He invented a new branch of mathematics. I mean, it was like legendary stuff that happens very infrequently in life. And then they said, well, we better bring him to England, and the climate killed him. There's a real case of climate change killing somebody.
What do you mean the climate?
He was born in, he lived, in rural India, which is freaking hot.
And he died, this guy?
He died. He caught some disease and died.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, what I was going to say is that skeptics in our audience and I don't know if this is correct or incorrect, but they would point to the extreme longevity of arguable scumbags like, I don't know, David Rockefeller and Dick Cheney and George H.W. Bush. Those guys didn't die of cancer at very young age like certain people.
Yeah. Now look here. Here's Trump Tower.
They got rid of the armed security. It's just a guy in a suit now.
It's like, come on in, knock it down.
Well,
And they have the Black Lives Matter mural.
they never cleaned up that paint. That woman we met threw the paint on it. See that blue paint over there?
Yeah, I do. I have to say, note to the Donald, pay your water bill and have somebody clean the front of this building.
Hose the windows?
Well, the building, not just the windows. Doesn't it look to you very dusty? But maybe there's no point in doing that because there's so much
Probably
construction.
in a day it gets back there.
Well, it's probably because the good stuff drips down from that on.
Buildings aren't my specialty, Charles.
So I'm suggesting, Jason, that we go
Sure.
east, young man, and then we'll walk over to the UN, and then we'll go on the way home. We'll stop by a certain embassy.
What did that person say?
I don't know. Babbling. Probably asking for
Well,
more.
it's a real change in the security posture at the building here.
Yeah. Which side shall we go on? This side or
I
that
think
side?
that side has
All right.
this.
So we don't have the light. Just to refresh everybody's.
Across this way, there's an overpass.
Okay.
there. Everybody's what? You want to refresh?
In the
Cocktails?
2016 election, Hillary Clinton had the presidential suite or whatever over there in that building, one block down, hotel, which used to have, I don't know if can you turn around and see it? Just you.
I just showed it.
Oh, you did? Okay. So up top there's like their flags and stuff. There used to be a bar up in there, really nice bar. And to hear the various accounts, and we don't yet know the truth, they purchased, or they secured this presidential suite thinking that she would break the glass ceiling and there would be a big ceremony and wherever it was in the Javits Center and all that kind of stuff. And supposedly around, I want to say around 11 p.m., there were reports, which may be apocryphal, that a very large amounts of glass shattering in that suite.
Charles, the Trump bar.
I've been in here, it's nice. Overpriced, everything in here is overpriced.
I'm surprised they make them wear masks. I thought they lifted all COVID restrictions.
Who knows? Is that your car? Guru?
No. AMG. It's expensive.
But I gotta believe, I mean, there are multiple reports, and you see it as well, that Hillary has had, I don't know if she still does, a volcanic temper. Bill, you saw, does. I mean, you experienced a little bit with him, right?
Yes, he tried to yell at me once the person knocked the camera out of my hand, but I mean, he's got armed Secret Service with him, but if you want to yell at me, you're going to lose that.
That's right. Because Jason, we have established, knows how to yell.
I'll yell at Bill Clinton, and he'll want to shut up and leave.
Yeah, let's hope he does that.
Well, he'll be like Patrick Byrne and be a coward and just get somebody with guns to throw me out.
Should we go down one more? We can walk by my old office.
Yeah.
So here we are in Madison Avenue. It's actually much busier. Mind you, a large number of people are on summer vacation now.
Here in New York or leaving New York?
In general, this is summer vacation time, right? I mean, people, if you're in the days when you work for somebody else, you try to take a week or two in July or August or both. And so there's not the same level of tourists in here, and there are, I'd say, higher percentage as a guest than average of residents are out of here. So this is pretty busy.
Bit of that tension that used to be around, though, you know, like Joe Biden talking about the big lie. You know where else that's come up?
Where?
It's mentioned in Swigert v. Goodman, that exact phrase. It's weird. Perhaps just watching the president, you know,
Watch it.
marginally educated pro se plaintiffs might pick up on some of the things that are said. But what color is this Volvo right in front of us, Charles?
The gray one here?
Is that gray?
Bluish gray?
Strange kind of iridescent paint.
Behind it, you mean? It's purple.
Right there. But anyway, this concept of the big lie, it's interesting how there's all these foregone conclusions that get arrived at that are relied upon as fact before the facts have been established. It's exactly what they did with the Russia hacked narrative.
Oh, yeah.
Nancy Pelosi and so many other people came right out and said it's a foregone conclusion that it happened. Forget about an investigation, forget about evidence. And you know, when Putin spoke to that British guy on NBC News, he said, you know, these are allegations. Where is any evidence? Put something out that we can look at and respond. None of that ever happens. They just make these allegations. I mean, it's quite sad, Charles,
Well,
what we've been reduced to.
Yeah, in doing more work in the last several weeks, that used to be Dunhill. Now it's Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo is a bank that's in trouble.
Why are they in trouble? They're
Because
everywhere.
they're shitty management and they don't know how to make loans properly.
They have 1 billion branches all over the place.
Right.
And also, what do you think about Time Warner and the Eye of Horus?
I know nothing about it. Not my area, my friend.
The falcon, you know, god of something from
I don't
Egypt.
know.
Got his eye plucked out. Whoa, that's a Maybach SUV.
So we're coming up on the Friars Club, 57.
Franciscan Friars, is that what that's named after?
I don't know. I don't think so. This is a comedians club.
But what is that, the Friars? Where do they get that from?
I don't know.
First
They're
I
fake.
thought-
It's a fake religious order. It's not any religious at all. These are comedians who have a club. Famous comedians, like Seinfeld's a member.
No, I know.
Yeah. I was asked if I wanted to be a member, and I foolishly said no. So I was a member of too many
Maybe not
clubs.
foolish.
But you see where the green is, the sweet green sign, and you see that one window there. That was our boardroom, and that window on the other was my office, and we had the whole second floor there, that building.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, and
Although-
this was empty. There was no Park Avenue Place when we had
I
that.
believe those two orbs there, that's similar to what they have outside the Lincoln Memorial, where they have like these torches and...
Those are light. Those are light at night. Those are lights.
No, I know, but I think that they have some symbolic value to somebody.
I don't know.
I don't know what it is though.
But we rented that place in '94, and at a time where the economy was not doing well, and we got a free rent for 2.5 months, I think it was, and we paid, I want to say $26.50 or $27.50 a square foot, which is nothing. But in '94
Oh, right. That's not nothing. That's a lot.
for this neighborhood.
I think I had an office was like $14 a square foot.
Right,
Now,
but-
granted, I was in a much different neighborhood and a much different business. Like you're in the same building here as the Ferrari dealership.
No, near that building. Yeah.
Oh well, sorry.
You want to stop by and order a few?
If you're buying, yeah.
If I buy it, sure.
So
sure.
the new.
How many do you?
Oh, look, here's this new one right here on the street. This dude just bought it. I guess. Is this the hybrid? Is this crazy new hybrid?
This is the F8.
That's hybrid, right?
Like I said, yeah, I designed it.
I think I've seen you in videos for this Ferrari dealership, right? No? I think I have. I think that person makes videos for and that's a hybrid, I'm pretty sure. This is the new crazy $900,000.
Is that how much it is? 900.
Something like that, if it's the car I'm thinking of. Oh, they're backing it up into the building. People can Google the Ferrari F8, but I'm pretty sure it's like 1,000 horsepower.
We arranged
hybrid.
this, Jason. Think of this. You know, we knew this was going to happen. We timed our departure and our route to get here precisely as we did, and we're bringing this to you. Think of the production value.
Yeah. So you see that dip in the front, Charles, creates downforce as the car drives crazy fast, aerodynamic.
Yeah, but you can't
eliminates
drive it.
lift.
You can't drive it crazy
I
fast.
think if you are a super millionaire buying a car for $900,000, you would take it to the track and stuff like that. There's a guy,
I think it's boring just going around a track.
well, I don't know about that. It's a sport. Some people might find golf boring.
I do.
Oh, look, it must have come out of that. Well, that's
So
cool.
we'll keep going that way, or
Yeah. Ferrari fans get a little, I forget the guy's name, but it's like David something Ferrari collector, and he has a channel, and the guy has like every Ferrari you can imagine. Now wait a minute, Charles, look at this.
yeah, this is a building that was under construction, and they stopped, and now they're going back, building it up.
It's similar to the original World Trade Center with those triangles coming together.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's designed by the same person. That's
This
the
is
Tokyo
Land. Tokyo.
land.
Why are you cursing at me? Tokyo. So you see all these this modern building. This used to be a number of brownstones in here that the developer purchased and then knocked down. And when we were over at that office space there, our lease was up, and we had a chance to buy any one of these three. They were nice. Well, I think one of them was like a strange bank's headquarters, and two were tin pot dictator consulates.
Joe Biden had a job back then.
He was a senator, but
So he's got some new air conditioning coming in.
whoa! I think we'll wait.
That looks heavy. So we got Ferraris being delivered, industrial air conditioners. Well, let's
No.
One second, guys.
Wow.
So you get a Ferrari.
Disaster
Which would you
waiting.
rather have?
I
This?
wonder which costs more.
That's not $900,000, you think?
No, I have no idea.
How much is that thing? How much is that worth, do you think?
How much is it worth?
Yeah.
It's up there.
100,000? 200,000?
I wouldn't tell you.
If you have to ask, you can't afford it, right? It's one of those. These guys don't price them, Charles. They just deliver them.
I had a nose ring. There you see over there, that building.
What is that?
Just somebody's office, I think.
I wonder whose office that is. They got some interesting logos on there.
Got some interesting coin. But so we could have bought any one of those townhouses for $2 million each.
I thought you were going to make an offer to the guy for the air conditioner. Like,
No.
what can I do to
Can
leave here with one of these things?
Yeah, can you wrap that up for me? I want it to go.
Yeah, like Charles, we'll put you in one of these air conditioners today.
You could drive it home. You see your way
Introduce you
clear.
to the
The credit manager.
General Motors credit department,
Yeah.
right?
You could be. Maybe we should
Oh
cross
man,
the
they
street
got
here.
a lot of them coming in.
Maybe we should cross the street to get out of the sun
Sure.
at some point.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, the contrast that we've created in our different styles of shows, Charles, where sometimes it's really fact and evidence-based research, interactive investigation, versus just walking around New York City causing trouble.
Who's causing trouble?
Just like getting into stuff. Seen Ferraris get delivered. It
No,
gives-
we have talked today about the essential case against the Clinton Foundation
Absolutely.
made in 30 seconds, and yet the entity still is out there, still solicits money, and the Clintons are still free.
Perhaps
Keep
they're
going this
having
way.
Ferraris
Oh,
and
what-
air
do we wanna
conditioners
go-
delivered.
Just down Lex to the embassy, or do you want to?
I don't mind.
What time is it now?
3:20.
Maybe let's just go down Lex. We haven't done that in a while.
An hour from now, Weed World will be popping off. Nice light here on the Chrysler Building.
Yeah, and here we are. This is Lexington Avenue. In the 60s, 50s and 60s, this used to be not very well built up. It used to be mostly old style townhouses, and then they knocked a bunch of them down. They had, some tall buildings,
We're
but
getting rained on by air conditioners. Charles, this Citicorp building, when was that constructed? Late 70s, right?
late 70s, early 80s, yeah, late 70s.
There was some sort of a critical problem with it. I don't know if people realize, but there's like a giant sphere hanging in that thing to prevent it from shaking around.
Is that right?
Oh yeah, there is a counterweight. I think you can see it.
There's the lipstick building.
Isn't that in England?
No, right there. That's where Madoff.
Is it called the lipstick building?
Yeah,
I thought that was in England. Or no, that's the Easter egg or something.
yeah, that's another one. No, that's definitely the lipstick building. Yeah, so there are a number of impressive law firms and investment firms around here. Indeed, we're coming up on, there's a company that I might know a little bit about that had a large headquarters building here in New York, and it's called General Electric. We're going to walk by it in a second. And
Welch.
this guy who had gotten to be a senior vice president at GE, which is a very big deal back in 1988, was outplaced, or he took early retirement, or whatever was the case. And so they gave him an office over here in the GE building. And I had to go over, we were trying to buy this company with a lot of debt and our leveraged buyout fund. And I had to come and meet him in his office. So the first time I went over there, I asked the secretary, I said, so where's this guy's, how do I find him? He said, don't worry, just take the elevator to the 29th floor. I said, okay, and then what? You'll find it. He had the whole floor.
Wow.
And this is somebody who was on his way out of GE. I mean, you can imagine. First business trip we went on, it was commercial. And his secretary was constantly, pestering me on the
Commercial
phone.
flight, you mean?
Yeah, first attempt was, can you give Mr. So-and-so would like to know the tail number of the jet? And I said, well, you'll
Why
know.
is that? To check the history of it?
No, because he assumed we'd fly private.
Ah.
And I said, well, he'll know what I know, because if we're flying commercial, we'll get out there and I'll tell you. She kept saying, what about this and what about that? And we ended up flying, I think it was Continental, to Cleveland, coach, and we got the last coach row. So I put the youngest person on the team next to the window, which was, there was no window, it was covered, and gave him the aisle, and I was in the middle. We get to the hotel near the Cleveland airport, and we had a reservation for 3 rooms, or however many rooms, and they only had 2 left. So I had to share a room with the young guy.
Wow.
It was a steep fall from his experience at GE.
Right.
But he later went to work at Blackstone Group, where he's actually in charge of, a senior guy in charge of their buyout operation. He made a lot more money in the end. So the story ended well. This, by the way, is a good restaurant. Have you ever been there? L'Entrecôte. Simple French food. It's good. Specializing in beef.
What's the cosmic figure?
Safes.
Charles, you ever see that store, The Magical Child?
No.
Bookstore?
Where is it?
I think it's defunct.
Oh, it's debunked?
While it was funked, it was like 19th Street or something, and I never went in there, but I always knew about it.
Is it a children's bookstore? Or?
No, it's like an occult bookstore.
Oh, I would never go into a place
But
like
I've
that.
just recently learned that it had something to do with Son of Sam.
Let's go a little slower.
Oh, sure. Just trying to get a little radio interference and a lot of noise from that.
Yeah, you're going to get that right here. So this is the GE building straight ahead of you, Jason. You see it?
That's it?
With the scaffolding. Yeah, well, look, wait till you see how tall it is. This was all just for GE. And it wasn't even their headquarters.
Yeah, that's strange. Where was the headquarters? New Jersey?
Oh, no. In Fairfield, Connecticut.
Did Thomas Edison start GE? Who started GE?
Well, yes and no. So he was involved with the predecessor company that became GE, but I don't think it was originally called General Electric.
Huh, that is actually taller than I realized.
Yeah, and here's a look I think should be banned in the city. You should not be allowed to walk down the Manhattan with no shirt. See, I don't care if you're, Adonis. You just shouldn't be allowed to do that. And you certainly shouldn't be allowed to do it if you're filthy. Bernard H. Mendick Corner. Imagine you live your whole life and all you got is a corner.
Well, what is going on in this building now? I mean, it's not G anymore, is it?
It's probably just sublet to lots of different uses.
So Thomas Edison did not start.
Well, I didn't say that. I'm very precise about company names, and so I'm not certain that the company that became known as General Electric Company is exactly the company that Edison started when he was doing his experiments. But he did get very much involved in the early days with GE. And I believe there was some kind of a fight. Here we go, we can see it right here.
What about Consolidated Edison?
I don't know anything about that. Oh, look at this. An award-winning restoration of the building was undertaken in 94 to 96 as a joint venture of Columbia University, Soros Realty,
What?
and the Mendick Company under the direction of WCA Design Group, Inc. He's everywhere, Soros.
Now wait a minute. It was constructed as the headquarters for RCA,
Right,
which
yeah,
is now
G-
Serco.
GE bought RCA.
Deeded to
GE bought RCA. This was the RCA building originally. Yeah, GE bought RCA in the 80s.
Columbia University and G. Soros Realty. That's unbelievable. Who is this Mendick?
I don't know. Columbia University is, I think, if not the largest landowner in New York City, it's one of them. It's gigantic, a tremendous amount of land.
And Bernadine Dorn's sister teaches at the nursing school there. And after they had taken over that hospital in the 70s and turned it into a methadone clinic, that was Lincoln Hospital that they took over, which, remember, there was one of those nurses who was talking about how everybody was dying from COVID, and when I tried to contact her, despite the fact that she was saying she was desperate to get her story out, she was virtually impossible to find. Did you see how fast that electric unicycle guy was going?
Dude, it's absurd. And
I couldn't even
this
turn
guy's
the camera around fast enough.
this guy's going the wrong way up. I mean,
I didn't even know those electric unicycles could go that fast.
nothing sketchy about that, moving that quick, right? So, on my way to you just now, about an hour and a half ago, at the intersection of, I want to say, 11th and 7th, or roughly in there, this idiot on a bike, electric bike, just aimed for the crowd. Just came in at high speed on a diagonal and just expected everybody to jump out of his way, which most people did.
I actually experienced something similar yesterday. One of these Amazon delivery guys who are driving a bike with a chain of like big
dependencies,
like baskets or whatever they are behind them. So he shouted something at me to get my attention, which worked. And when I looked up, he did this like really large maneuver that resulted in the bike, sort of gradually coming to a stop on the corner over there. So it was like, hey, heads up, and he did this big move, and then he was up on the sidewalk on the other side, and I was like, what is going on with this?
This is the Intercontinental Hotel redoing it, and then this is another thing, a hotel redoing that. But New York is back.
Indian.
That's not a cheap item, right?
I don't know that much about motorcycles, but Indian is a classic
I'd
brand.
say it's $10,000 bucks.
Probably more than that, but I have no idea. It could be much more.
But you're a trusting soul to leave something like that on the street.
It's a classic brand.
But now we are in the heart of Manhattan, the old heart of Manhattan, and look, everything's for lease. Across the street, boarded
The heart
up.
of Manhattan is suffering pericarditis,
Right.
or whatever.
But back when I stopped work in 2002, so before 2001, before 9/11, from 82 to 2001, this area would be jammed, even in the summer, at this time of day.
That poor little kid was still wearing a mask.
Where?
Just walked by, outside, with nobody around.
Yeah. Do you know anybody who could do an imitation of Dr. Fauci?
Well, generally we trust the grantees, even if they're in China. It could have come from a lab. It's theater. You could go to the theater, wear a mask, We could do a show about a lamb. Put that in the theater. Well, I haven't heard much more about Bruce Springsteen speaking about theater and vaccines.
Was there going to be a concert?
He had a show where you had to have a vaccine to go there. It's like a one-man show of Bruce Springsteen music that you had to have. You couldn't go if you had the AstraZeneca vaccine.
I'm glad you bring that up. So I saw somebody even dumber than Jen Psaki, I'll circle back, is this idiot Sebelius. What's her first name? Kathleen Sebelius, I think, who was in the Obama administration. So she said the following yesterday. She said that people who don't get the vaccine, first, should not be allowed to work, and second, should not be allowed to be near children. Now, the statistics that are coming out suggest what group is the least likely to be vaccinated, Jason?
Least likely to be vaccinated?
Least likely.
I don't know. African
American men.
Oh, really? Why
Well,
is
they
that?
say, with great validity. I mean, after the experiments you performed in the past, you really think I'm going to take this unproven thing?
Right.
Anyway, so here's Kathleen Sebelius, a woman, a cabinet level official in the Obama administration, out there while Joe is making his numbskull remarks in Pennsylvania, saying, in effect, that black men shouldn't be allowed to work or be near children.
Wow.
Right, and then the press just says, yeah, give him a pass, give her a pass. And then in related news, which is really unrelated, apparently there's some study that came out of a socialist paradise, Iceland. I think I tweeted it out, which says, careful, that government workers contribute nothing to the economy.
Oh. So
this is coming out, on the socialism's experience. Government workers contribute nothing. Meanwhile, in Cuba, which we're coming up to, you have rioters in the streets. You have now the government firing on the peaceful protesters.
Oh boy.
And Dumb Joe is saying that the reason they're in the streets is they're not getting enough COVID vaccine.
Is that what he's saying?
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't say it's climate change. That they're out there because of climate change.
But is that what Cuba is saying? Give us vaccines, or they're saying
No,
we're sick of a dictator?
I think it's they're sick of the dictator. I mean, when we go back to 2010 and the Arab Spring, what that was really about across the world was soaring food prices. When you have soaring food prices, the people who literally live hand to mouth are hurt the most. And when your children are starving and food is now 30% more expensive, you don't just sit there and put together a PowerPoint presentation and go onto a Facebook group about Cubans against starvation. You know, right? You go to the streets and you say, enough of this bullshit. Why are the socialist leaders? Why does AOC have 2 apartments and a Tesla?
And why won't you let people help Abuelita?
Right. And so you stop these theories and then when you look at how much money Cuba, they're not spending that much money on government, but here in America, we never really went through it. But Cullen made an excellent presentation down in Philadelphia where he talked about the percentage of tax revenue that's provided by Social Security, Medicare, and personal income, and that number is 85%. He said 71, but you have to add the 14, so it's 85%. That's of tax revenue. But tax revenue is a tiny fraction of spending because we've been deficit spending. So the real thing to be looking at is not how much the division of the revenue, but how much are we spending on, in quotes, government, all types of government. And that number, which when you and I began, and one of the first presentations I did was on the top of your, what do you call it there? The roof garden.
Yeah, the roof
where I took people through, or maybe it wasn't a roof garden, but I took people through the division of spending in the U.S. And the spending on all spending, not just income, but capital expenditures, is for all portions of government probably pushing $7 trillion in the U.S.
Wow.
It's a huge amount of money.
Well, just a quick aside, Charles, I just this morning have placed that John Cullen presentation from the Third Continental Congress on a new co-host YouTube channel called Citizens Grand Jury that people can find if they go down, I think on Crowdsource the Truth Forever or Crowdsource the Truth 5. I've made a little list at the bottom of the related channels, and the Citizens Grand Jury channel is in there, and I've isolated John Cullen's presentation, so if anybody missed that on July 5th, they can go back and watch it.
It's very good, and his sort of analysis being presented around the world, probably because of him, people looking and saying, all right, what's the total number of reported COVID cases and deaths in this country? And explain to me how this poor country with shitty healthcare has a much lower incidence of COVID than the U.S. or than.
Cullen has been banging on that table for about a year now, and you're right. Finally, people are sort of unable to continue ignoring it because it's just such a valid question that must be answered. Do we want to look in here at all or no?
Not really.
Been in there plenty of times.
It's pitiful. We're on our way. It's a long walk, actually.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, it used to be that the rising revolutionary generation, the hippies in the 60s and 70s, they were the ones who were questioning authority. That was one of their taglines or bylines or whatever, slogans. And don't trust anybody over 30, and make sure you always, nothing is settled. You got to always ask questions. This is the Obama, this is the Biden cabinet meeting right now.
Hey.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, you got to admit what he's looking at is quite interesting.
What's that?
Excuse me, guys. Midtown Comics. I know it's on.
Oh, it's up on 40. If it's still in business, it's on 45th.
Midtown Comics, the comic store?
Yeah. 45th between Lex and 3rd.
That away.
Yeah.
Thank you. 2 years ago, I had 5 arteries bleed out of my chest, and then I had a couple of strokes, and I forget my cell phone at home. My wife gives me a list at the store. And guess what I forget?
The list.
The list. I need a list to remind me of the things I'll forget. I got out of my house. I was 2 blocks away from my house, and I said, "Son of a bitch, where's my mask?"
It's on your face.
I realized that after I walked back 1 block.
All right. Good luck getting home.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. We were about to get the sob story.
It's a fellow Yale alum.
Harvard,
John.
most likely.
If you can nail it. I was going to ask him if he was a grip, because he was basically wearing the grip shirt. Now, did you notice that police officer with a head covering? Was that a Muslim woman?
Probably. And here's a guy going to ask for money here on the left.
But that's interesting, isn't it? I don't know that I've ever seen a female Muslim NYPD officer before.
Yeah.
It's also interesting that they're not allowing the traditional headgear, but she's still doing some version of that. And Congress made a whole change of rules to allow Ilhan Omar to spew her hate. I mean, wear her traditional headgear.
Ilhan Omar, was that right?
Yeah, they're supposed to have no hats or headgear whatsoever in Congress. That's a different guy.
I know, I'm just saying another example of these crazy ass wheels. And here, 42nd and Lex, center of New York, and you have this.
That was a strange little interlude with that guy going to the comic book store.
Yeah, but he was going to ask for $20 to get home.
He was going to get denied.
You were going to give him 40?
No, I wasn't going to give him the time of day. I was about to yell at him, but I recognized what he was saying. There's always that moment where it's like, what is this guy getting at?
Well, they try to bond, establish some kind of a bond.
Yes, it's a confidence game.
And then they go into the spiel. And the trick is not to even start talking to him.
But it does sometimes make for interesting
TV.
Yes, people can watch that.
You mean podcast? We have to call. Oh, so I have a new phrase that I've coined. I didn't get a chance to tell you about.
Okay.
So, you know how everyone talks about, you ask somebody, some young, starry-eyed, scruffy, where do you work? Oh, I work for a not-for-profit organization. You're like, oh, wow, okay, you must be cool.
Must be a grifter.
Right? So instead of calling them, some not-for-profit organizations are reputable. Many are. The Clinton Foundation, on the other hand, it's not a not-for-profit. It's a for-plunder organization.
Right.
That's what it is. So I'm going to try to popularize that term.
Because I have at times been inadvertently running nonprofit organizations, although they were not arranged to be that way. Now, Charles, look at that.
What?
369 Lexington Avenue. Nikola Tesla that's somehow a divine, something about 3, 6, and 9 that dictates the universe.
Well,
people will chat about that now, but I'm not exactly straight on the whole.
That's way out of my league. This is the ancient, the Zucker part of the Zuckerberg family.
Zucker bagels?
It started with bagels and smoked fish, I might add.
There is a video online of Mark Zuckerberg smoking meats.
Really? How about Hunter Biden smoking Parmesan?
Hunter Biden would smoke meat, cheese, paintings.
Actually, Peter Schweitzer has a piece today in Breitbart, and everyone will say, "Oh, it's in Breitbart, it's bullshit." But in my experience with Breitbart, the editors are rough. They make sure that anything you put in, you can defend. But it's an article that Schweitzer and his people have dry cleaned the Hunter Biden laptop, and that Joe Biden definitely, according to Schweitzer, their work, and they have the receipts, Joe Biden definitely profited through the operation of the Hunter Biden corruption factory.
Why hasn't the FBI done that?
The FBI is like, we've had evidence that the Biden family is stealing money in this way, and the FBI is like, well, where's our cut? You know,
right. I mean, at what point does the FBI just get dismantled as a completely ineffective, doing the opposite of what it's supposed to be doing?
Well, I think I may have learned, maybe not, but I may have learned my lesson holding out hope that Bill Barr was actually a good dude and not listening to you enough. But now it's crystal clear that he was just doing the bidding of the deep state. And I used to buy the argument, well, you know, the line officers of the FBI are really good, it's the management that are bad. A fish rots from the head.
Yes.
And if you allow the type of corruption that we're talking about with the Clinton Foundation goes back to 1997, if not beforehand. Mapu Tofu's out of business. What am I going to do?
Who would have anticipated that?
What am I going to do?
But also, I'm noticing Two Boots Pizza is that seems more decorated than the last time we saw it. Although it says commercial ground floor space available. So what is it? Is it the pizza place or?
I don't know. Get some gluten-free food over there for you.
I'm not really.
Or a Thai.
I like Thai food.
Watch it. I mean, you got to be really determined to lose money if in 2021 your main line of business is ties. I mean, when was the last time you wore a necktie?
Last week, but it's the same one I've had for a long time.
Right.
Like, to me, ties, maybe I've bought a dozen in my entire life.
No, I bought hundreds, but I mean...
And that's probably because I lost 11 of them?
Yeah, there used to be a tie company called Countess Mara Ties. They used to advertise on TV. It used to be a premium thing. And in 95 or 96, we had a chance to buy the company, and it's owned by, was owned by the Pulitzer family, not the Pulitzer Prize Pulitzers, but different Pulitzers.
Jovan Pulitzer, who's doing the election
Maybe.
audit?
I think this is Cuber.
Oh, yeah. Well, one fair point, Charles, that a lot of people were making is, you know, the strongest defense that Dial M for Moron President Dumb Joe Biden could make would be to say, you know what, we won this thing fair and square. We're going to do an open and completely transparent audit, not go around saying it's a big lie. Now, so this is the Cuban embassy?
I don't think it's the embassy. I think it's the consulate.
What's the difference again? Sometimes they're in the same building, aren't they?
I don't know, and I don't even know if it's the mission to the UN or what it is exactly. And they get pretty sticky about you getting too close to them. So
maybe they'll hit us with this truck.
Here's the entrance there.
It looks like a loading dock. You definitely don't want anybody getting in. 315. Yeah, here, what does it say?
permanent mission
Permanente
to the
de
UN.
Antes las Naciones Unidas.
You know what we could do in sort of a spirit of Cuban-American friendship? You go over to a deli and buy them some Brasso. We could polish up that.
Brasso. Baby Brasso is Brazilian.
Brasa?
Baby Brasso, right.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with Brasso. So they've got some finger graffiti on there making fun of the cops. The last time we saw a Cuban protest, it was over here at the UN. Should we go check that out?
I don't want to. We're
Too hot?
too hot. Yeah.
Got it.
That's okay.
That's fine with me. I don't want
This was the same dry cleaners I used to go to when I lived up
to
the
press
street.
the issue. So, but there are some places that still say wear a mask. I have seen other places that say we respect your right to wear a mask or not wear a mask. But most places are still telling you to wear it. Depending
It's tough
on
it's tough to really understand, and again, the explanation is just the approach taken by the globalists and the World Health Organization and their minions is really an embarrassment. It undercuts the integrity of the global health system to pretend that we have the same standards here as we have in Ethiopia, or not just to pick on Ethiopia, Mexico, or even Canada. The Canadian health system sucks. I think one of the
across that side.
yeah, one of my friends, I think, father died 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago.
Waiting for surgery.
Waiting
in
for
Canada.
surgery, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I think that a lot of people are starting to realize that Justin Trudeau is kind of an asshole, and he's tweeting about hockey when every week they're finding hundreds more dead kids. I'm trying to figure out who is driving around Canada with the ground surface penetrating radar and finding all these bodies. Like, why do we not know who that is? Not that I'm questioning them, but I do find it interesting when the narrative shifts dramatically to something that certain people always knew about that now is getting play.
To Madison, maybe?
Sure. I think, I don't know, there's really no official investigation in Canada of what caused all these unmarked graves to get there.
And I would have thought the powerful NSA, our satellite systems, we would have that radar. We could probably, I mean, if Google's taking pictures of the entire Earth.
What do you think of that, Charles?
What?
What is this?
I don't know everything, Jason. I have no clue.
Philoptochos
Whatever.
Society. Yeah, they're taking pictures. I don't know if they can ground penetrate from a satellite.
You remember,
Maybe they could.
we've done the movie already, My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Remember that?
Yes.
It's probably a society to organize and grade Windex, whether the Windex is. Remember that from the movie?
I don't. Oh yeah.
Everything was
Windex on everything.
Yeah, on everything. Yeah. So this street has not changed all that much. On the corner here, it used to be a hotel that was knocked down. But these buildings are more or less as they were in 1984 when I moved here, or '3.
These things were probably constructed way before that.
Oh yeah. And these, you look at them and the prices are probably not that high, but the demerit of this block, if you care about peace and quiet, is its continuous stream of cars
From the tunnel.
which is very helpful if you live in that building where I used to live and you want to take a taxi.
Right.
It's very easy to get one.
A lot of garbage everywhere, Charles.
That's not garbage. New York City is back, Jason. You see, what they do here is they take these bags at night and they cut into them and they retrieve the bottles.
Cans and bottles.
And different
rats
parts of the
get in there.
city, they just spew the garbage everywhere. Let's stay here until it changes.
Sure. Those bags are Mint X or Rid X or something. They're rat deterrent bags.
Are they really?
Yeah, I've seen that on the box. And then when you cut them, I don't know if that rat deterrence works as well.
Something I don't spend a lot of time worrying about.
Well, I am kind of thinking about it because this garbage is everywhere, and it seems like we could have an innovation that would improve the city, create an economic opportunity for somebody
Right.
get this garbage off the street, improve the sort of public health conditions.
The company that I know, I was on the board of it, private company, we talked about net profit margin of 7.7%. This was in heavy manufacturing. They had a net profit margin approaching 35%. And what they would do is to make sure that people were respectful up and down the food chain, no matter how senior you were when you came to join the company. The first 2 weeks of your job experience was to clean all the toilets inside the...
What company was that?
I'm reluctant to give you the name. It's a private company. But
they had you cleaning
no, not
toilets?
me. I was on the board of directors.
Got it.
But if you're a salaried employee, you had to go do that. And it really was... it changed the attitudes, a lot of these stuffed shirts. I mean, people were really good to one another.
Wow.
Another rule they had, which is genius, this company was based in Ohio, in a town, but really surrounded by farmland. So you get good farm labor, people who, let's say, live on a farm, and the husbands work in the farm and the wife works in the manufacturing company, or vice versa. And let's say and they pay extraordinarily well, much higher than the average company in the area or even nationally. And so incredible teamwork. So if you do something stupid, and people always do something stupid, the penalty, for example, let's say a guy in the company has an affair and it becomes a big issue in the company, his first punishment is he has to go tell his wife and stay home for a week.
If you live,
If you survive that experience, and I tell you, the incidence of problems in that company, there's very few problems in that company.
well, I mean, I got to appreciate their willingness to hold people accountable.
But so getting back to why I would bring such a story up, my solution to make government more accountable is you have this big election, in November, every November, and you say, okay, here's what you're going to do, you guys who won. You're going to go, and you're from New York,
Clean the toilets.
you're going to go into Grand Central Station, and you're going to clean the toilets for 2 weeks.
The whole place is a toilet.
I'm just saying. Congratulations, you're the next senator, Schumer. You're going to Grand Central, clean up the toilets for 2 weeks, and when you're done with that, you could talk about spending more money on Grand Central.
He is just such an objectionable individual. I mean, even just on a personal level. When I met
You met
Ed
him, right?
Koch, yeah.
Schumer.
Well, first Ed Koch I met many years ago at a party for a restaurant, and he was extremely friendly
Oh yeah, he's well known.
and a consummate politician in that he was able to engage you in conversation, and in a period of 5 minutes
Yeah.
or less, to determine what it is that you're interested in and talk to you about that in a way that made you feel like important.
He'd always ask people, how am I doing? How am I doing?
But he didn't, because he wasn't the mayor when I met him. He was
Oh.
just like, how are you doing?
Oh, is that right?
And then made the conversation. I sort of detected that he wasn't, it did not feel, what's the opposite of genuine? It didn't feel fake at all.
Is he hitting on you?
But no, I didn't even know he was gay at the time. I found that out many
He
years
was that
later.
effective.
Well, he definitely wasn't hitting on me.
All right.
And I forget exactly what we were talking about, but I remember leaving the conversation and thinking that's definitely a guy who has read Dale Carnegie
Oh yeah.
and is interested in making you the topic of conversation because, everybody's interested in themselves. But by contrast, Chuck Schumer
Ugh.
was such a self-absorbed dick
Yeah.
who basically told me, look, I'm not going to talk to you, go away.
Yeah.
And I was like, Dick, you work for me.
Yeah. He's amazing. You know about his family business, right?
It's a rat extermination business.
Right. Can't even do that right.
You told me about that. I didn't know anything about that.
That's true.
This fancy
Now look at this furniture.
place.
I got to say,
Roche Boubois, Charles. They're air conditioning the sidewalk.
I went on a great vacation in 1987. In January of '87, I went to London for a few days, celebrated my birthday at a very fancy hotel with friends, and then I went to Mauritius. And on that flight, there was a guy in the same class of service with us who was this, Rodney Dangerfield bum. And what he was, on a long flight, we went from London to Bahrain to the Seychelles, out to Mauritius. And then he was there in Mauritius, and we went back with him. It turned out that
Wang, what's with the pictures? We're in a
exactly.
parking
Well,
lot.
what his business is taking the. He said, "I'm in the remnant business." Like, what's that? So when you have these clothes that go through junk stores or whatever, and ultimately they have to be dealt with, he takes the remnants, he puts them in these pallets, he sends them to Africa, they rework them, and they sell them in Africa.
Wow.
That's what this shit looks like to me.
This is super expensive furniture.
Oh,
as
no.
far as I understand.
I'm sorry.
I don't even know what this is. You just put it on the floor like that, and what?
This is the kind of thing where they, it's like Hunter Biden's art. In fact, we could do a deal here. We got to get the gallery to put some Hunter Biden's art up here, right? And then if you'll pay $500,000 for Hunter Biden's art, pay $50 for a chair here.
Yeah, I think that this furniture is extremely expensive.
It's on sale.
Right. But 50% off of already too expensive.
So the thing, what you learn, I'm no expert on the area, but what you learn is that is mass-produced furniture.
Is it?
Oh yeah, and it's not custom made. And that kind of stuff, the markup on that is huge.
Yeah.
We're here on Madison Avenue in the high-end furniture district.
Well, it's one of those things that they're ready to give somebody 20% off right out of the door if they have
Exactly.
a license to design.
Interior
their living room
decorator,
or
yeah.
whatever. Right.
Yeah. Or if you have the sales tax card, you get 100%, 50% off. So, but if you do want to get into that furniture, collecting furniture, what you want are the designers' models for mass-produced stuff. Now that's incredibly valuable. Designers, the piece that a designer used to come up with something that then was mass-produced. If you own that, that's big.
This is the Oxford Press. It keeps
I know.
distracting me. F. Scott Fitzgerald. Now,
I think it's F. Scott Fitzgerald. I may have this wrong, but did he go to Princeton? I think he did. And I think what happened was F. Scott Fitzgerald, I may have this wrong, if it isn't F. Scott Fitzgerald, it's somebody like him, was a troublemaker in college. So his parents sent him out to Montana to spend the summer getting his ass kicked in Montana, in the town that my ancestor
why is
was.
Montana a rough neighborhood?
If you're an Ivy League, know-it-all,
Yeah. They don't
tuxedo-wearing person in 1909 or 10 or 12 or whenever you went out there in the summer, your job is to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and ride horses around and do whatever they
Herd
do,
cattle.
deal with the sheep and the cattle and all that kind of stuff, and shut the fuck up. And when somebody says jump, you say how high. It's a different environment. And so this ancestor of mine had my whatever it would be, paternal, and she had a sister who married, I think, the rancher who kicked F. Scott Fitzgerald's ass in
Wow.
in this little
That's
town.
funny.
Now, here's Wells Fargo again.
I'm telling you, they're everywhere.
And WeWork used to be around here, but I don't see.
Well, that's everywhere also.
Yeah, I think it used to be
Is
everywhere.
it in that building there with the scaffolding?
You're sitting there and you're thinking of a name for your business that's laundering money. Dolphin Blue Spa. I mean, like, why would you call something a Dolphin Blue Spa?
Well, it's probably a foreign person who named it, and maybe that means something. Oh, there's Cuban cuisine there.
That's right.
Teener. Cuber.
I hope Tina 40 is kicking AOC's ass over her reaction to the Cuba thing.
Well, I hope that's right. I mean, she's definitely on top of that. Oh, Charles, why did you park over here?
That's a zip. Is that a sport version?
That's a roller.
I know,
Yeah,
but
some kind of new coupe.
again, they don't look as good as they used to, I don't think.
Well, there's some kind of boat tail Rolls Royce that just came out that's the most expensive car ever, and then I think like somebody famous, like Cardi B or something, bought it.
Oh, okay.
Somebody, I don't know if that's right, but somebody, maybe P. Diddy or somebody.
Cardi B, who is she, a rapper?
I don't know. I just heard about that Rolls Royce, and some very famous hip hop person bought it.
Ooh. Just want to stand here for a second.
It's a pretty hot day, Charles. I think it might be deceptive to people.
Ooh. I would not be adverse to calling it a day.
Yeah, it's been quite a lot of walking
Yeah.
around in the heat. So I think we'll do that. And I've got a couple of other shows to do today. I'm still waiting for some communications from a variety of people. I don't want to give away exactly who and what and when it's going to be, because last week I did that and then it didn't happen. But we've got several shows coming up. Well, I can see there's a lot of emails here. So I'm going to head back to the place. There we go. Okay. Going to have a really important guest later today.
Good.
The attorney for, well, I don't want to give it away,
All right.
but it's going to be interesting. So people are going to stay tuned to Crowdsource the Truth Forever, Crowdsource the Truth 5. I know there's a lot of different channels now. One of the ways you can avoid confusion is by becoming a sponsor on patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth or subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Then the live stream gets to you wherever it's coming from. Charles, thanks for another great walk around. I'm
Thank you.
feeling pretty thirsty myself. Thanks for watching.